I spent 19 years crying over a grave that was empty the whole time. You assume that when you bury someone the story is over, but for me it was just a long pause before the horror movie started up again. I need to get this down on record because I do not know what is going to happen to me after tonight. My name is Sarah and I am 28 years old, and up until last Tuesday I was just a regular girl working a dead-end job at a diner in Ohio. I had a normal messy life and a cat named Buster and a dad who drank too much whiskey on the anniversary of the crash. That was my world. It was small and it was sad, but it was mine. Then I got the call. I was standing in the aisle at the grocery store staring at the cereal boxes and trying to decide if I could afford the name brand stuff. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I pulled it out and saw a number I did not recognize. It had a local area code. Usually I never answer those because it is always some scammer trying to sell me car insurance or tell me my social security number got stolen. I let it go to voicemail. I put the cheap cereal in my cart and kept moving. I did not feel a chill. I did not feel a premonition. It was just a Tuesday. When I got to my car, I threw my bags in the passenger seat and sat there for a minute watching the rain hit the windshield. It was coming down hard. I connected my phone to the Bluetooth and saw the notification. One new voicemail. I figured I would just delete it and put on some music so I could drive home without thinking about my rent being due. I hit play. The sound of static filled the speakers of my Honda. Then a breath. A sharp intake of air like someone was trying not to cry. The recording cut off with a click. I sat there for 20 minutes. I could not move my legs. I replayed the message 4 times. I love you, Peanut. Peanut. That was her name for me. I checked the timestamp on the voicemail. It was recorded at 4:12 in the afternoon. Today. It was not an old recording playing by mistake. It was not a ghost in the machine. A woman with my dead mother's voice and my dead mother's memories had called me from a burner phone 20 minutes ago. I drove home like a maniac. I ran red lights. I almost hit a truck. My brain was screaming at me that this was impossible. My mother died in a car accident on a slick road in November almost 2 decades ago. The car went off a bridge and into the river. The police said the current was too strong and the body was washed away, but they found her purse and her shoes and enough blood to know she did not survive. We had a closed casket funeral. I remember the smell of the lilies. I remember my dad holding my hand so tight it hurt. I remember throwing a single white rose onto the mahogany wood before they lowered it into the ground. If she was alive, then who did we bury? I got to my house and ran inside. My dad was sitting in his recliner watching the news. He looked up at me and smiled. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. His hair was gray and his face was lined with the kind of grief that never really goes away. "Hey kiddo, you are home late," he said. I looked at him and I felt a wave of nausea. Do not trust him. That is what the voice said. "Hey Dad," I said. "I am just gonna go upstairs and change." Long day. He turned back to the TV. "You want some dinner later? I can order a pizza." "Maybe," I said. I walked up the stairs slowly. Every step felt heavy. I went into my room and locked the door. I put my ear against the wood to make sure he was not following me. I could hear the murmur of the television downstairs. I was safe for now. I went to the closet. Above my closet there is a small hatch that leads to the attic. We never go up there. It is full of dust and fiberglass and boxes of junk we never unpacked after the renovation. I dragged my desk chair over and climbed up. I pushed the hatch open and the smell of stale air and old memories hit me in the face. I pulled myself up into the darkness. I used the flashlight on my phone. The attic was a graveyard of furniture and plastic bins. I crawled over the beams trying not to make noise. The floorboards creaked and I froze waiting to hear my dad yell from downstairs. Nothing happened. I searched for 10 minutes until I found the garment bag. It was hanging on a rusty nail in the back corner. I unzipped it and dust flew everywhere. Inside was my grandmother's old red wool coat. It smelled like mothballs and peppermint. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely feel the fabric. I patted down the lining. Nothing. I felt panic rising in my chest. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. But then my fingers brushed against something stiff near the hem at the bottom. There was a slit in the fabric. That was all it said. I stared at the note and the key and I felt the tears finally spill over. She was alive. Or she had been alive recently enough to hide this. Why did she leave me? Why did she let me mourn her for 19 years? Why did she let me grow up thinking she was dead while my dad drank himself into a stupor every night? I climbed down from the attic and hid the key in my bra. I put the note in my shoe. I sat on my bed and tried to stop shaking. I needed to think. If she was alive, then the accident was a lie. If the accident was a lie, then the police report was a lie. I took out my laptop. I have always been good at digging. You spend enough time on the internet, you learn how to find things people want hidden. I pulled up the archives of the local newspaper from the year she died. I found the article about the crash. Local woman presumed dead after river plunge. I read the details again. Witness reported the car swerving to avoid a deer. The guardrail gave way. The car was recovered 3 miles downstream completely crushed. No body found. I scrolled down to the comments section. It was an old site, so the comments were archived, but I could still read them. Most of them were condolences. Prayers for the family. But there was one comment posted 3 days after the accident. The username was just a string of numbers. The brakes were cut. That was it. Just 4 words. No replies. No likes. Just a statement hanging there in the digital void. I closed the laptop. My heart was pounding like a hammer against my ribs. My dad was downstairs. The man who raised me. The man who taught me how to ride a bike and how to drive a car. The man who held me when I woke up screaming from nightmares about drowning. Do not trust him. I needed to see the death certificate again. I knew where he kept the important papers. He had a safe in his bedroom closet. I knew the combination because I saw him open it once when I was 16 to get my birth certificate for my driver's license. It was his birthday. I waited until I heard the shower running. He always took a shower at 7 o'clock. It was his routine. I crept out of my room and down the hall. The bathroom door was closed and I could hear the water running. I slipped into his bedroom. It smelled like Old Spice and stale laundry. I went to the closet and moved the shoeboxes aside to get to the safe. I spun the dial. Right to 10. Left to 24. Right to 58. Click. The handle turned. I opened the heavy door. Inside there were stacks of cash. More cash than a diner waitress and a retired mechanic should have. There were passports. 2 of them. I opened the top one. It was my dad's picture, but the name said Robert Vance. That was not his name. His name was Michael. I opened the second passport. It was a picture of my mother. But she looked different. Her hair was dyed blonde and she had glasses on. The name said Elizabeth Vance. The issue date was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. She was alive 5 years ago. She was traveling. With him. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. They were in this together. Or at least they had been. But then why did she call me? Why did she tell me to run? I dug deeper into the safe. At the bottom under the cash there was a file folder. I opened it. It was full of medical records. Not for me. For me and my mom. I flashed back to when I was 9. The months after the accident are a blur. The doctors told my dad it was trauma. They said I was blocking out the pain. I went to therapy for years. I took pills they gave me. Little blue pills that made me feel floaty and calm. What if they were not fixing me? What if they were erasing me? I heard the water turn off in the bathroom. Panic seized me. I shoved the papers back into the folder. I put the passports back. I closed the safe and spun the dial. I arranged the shoeboxes exactly how they were. I ran out of the room and back to my own bedroom just as I heard the bathroom door open. I sat on my bed breathing hard. My hands were trembling. My whole life was a lie. My parents were not who I thought they were. My mother was alive and hiding. My dad was living under a fake name and hoarding cash and fake passports. And I was some kind of experiment. I looked at my phone. I wanted to call the police. But who could I trust? If my dad could fake a death and get away with it, who was helping him? The police in this town all knew him. They drank beer with him at the local bar. I was alone. The phone buzzed again. A text message this time. Same unknown number. They know you listened. Get out of the house. Now. I did not hesitate. I grabbed my backpack. I shoved my laptop and my wallet inside. I put on my sneakers. I did not pack clothes. I did not pack my toothbrush. I just grabbed the keys to my car. I opened my bedroom door. My dad was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He was wearing his bathrobe and he was drying his hair with a towel. He looked up at me and for a second he looked like the dad I loved. Soft eyes. Gentle smile. Going somewhere, Sarah? He asked. His voice was casual but his eyes were alert. He was watching my hands. He was watching the backpack slung over my shoulder. I just need to get some tampons, I said. I will be right back. He stood there for a long moment blocking the path to the front door. The silence stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. It is late, he said. The roads are slick. I will be careful, I said. My voice sounded steady. I was surprised at how good of a liar I was. Maybe it runs in the family. He stepped aside. Okay, kiddo. Be quick. I walked down the stairs. I could feel his eyes burning into my back. I walked past him and I smelled the soap and underneath it the faint metallic smell of the gun oil he used to clean his hunting rifles. I opened the front door and stepped out into the rain. I walked to my car. I did not run. I knew if I ran he would know. I got in and locked the doors. I started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked up at the house. My dad was standing in the window watching me. He was on the phone. He was not smiling anymore. I put the car in drive and peeled out of the driveway. I drove until the house disappeared in the rearview mirror. I drove until the town lights faded. I got on the highway and headed north. I do not know where I am going. I just know I cannot go back.